Hello, and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Addy Learns a Lesson. Chapter 4 The Lines Are Drawn. That evening, Addy was studying her spelling words as Mama made supper. Mama sprinkled flour on the table and began rolling out pieces of dough. She was making biscuits to go with her supper of black-eyed peas. Addy gathered scraps of dough as Mama began cutting the biscuits. One word I've been wanting to learn how to spell is family, Mama said to Addy. You know how to spell that word yet? I do, Addy answered. She started working on the scraps of dough into thin strips and made an F and then an A. Mama, what do you think Esther doing right now? Addy asked as she continued baking the letters. I suspect she's getting ready to eat her supper too, Mama said. I miss her, Addy said, and Papa and Sam. She sighed deeply. Mama, when are we going to live together again like a real family? Mama sighed too. I can't say when we'll be together again, Addy, but I don't want you thinking that we ain't a family because we ain't all in one place. We just as much a family as we was back in North Carolina. Addy finished spelling family with the dough pieces. Family. Family, Mama read. Family, that's us. That's us, Addy said softly. The next day in school, Miss Dunn talked about the war and the progress the soldiers from the North were making. It appears that our Union troops are winning the war, she said proudly. The class cheered. Miss Dunn went on. Now it's important for the Union soldiers to know we support them. Harriet interrupted. My mother does volunteer nursing to help wounded colored soldiers, she said importantly. She says many of the soldiers she sees are missing an arm or a leg. Some of the children groaned. I'm sure that's true, Miss Dunn said. This has been a very bloody war. The soldiers who make it back alive are lucky, even those who are missing limbs. Many soldiers are dying in battle. All the men who go off to fight for the North are our heroes. They need to know we care about them. That's why the whole school is going to the Baltimore Depot today to help send off a troop of colored soldiers. An excited buzz went around the room. I wish I was old enough to fight, Billy Maples blurted out. Even if I lost a leg, I'd still be a hero. Sarah raised her hand. Miss Dunn, why there got to be a war at all? She said. Miss Dunn paused for a moment. Sometimes people fight even when they don't want to. They fight for what they believe is right. I wish there wasn't no war, Sarah said. Before Miss Dunn could respond, Harry turned around and said to Sarah, you know the war is going to free the slaves. You should be glad for the war. You were a slave yourself. Harriet, that will be enough, Miss Dunn said. Almost all of us colored people used to be slaves. Not me. My family has always been free, Harriet said proudly. Addy could see a tense look come over Miss Dunn's face. Girls and boys, almost all colored people came to America as slaves, she said. If you weren't a slave, someone in your family probably was. One of the reasons there is a war now because a line exists between colored and white people. The line is slavery. Miss Dunn turned and faced Harriet. We don't need to do or say anything that draws more lines between people. The entire country has been divided into two. Let's not make differences based on who was a slave or wasn't, or anything else. Is that clear? Yes, Miss Dunn, came the answer from the students together. Harriet, Miss Dunn said sharply, do I make myself clear? Yes, ma'am, Harriet said, embarrassed. Good, said Miss Dunn. When we go to the depot, I want you all to be on your best behavior. Now line up with your desk partners. As the class left the building, Harriet put her arm around Addy's shoulders. So what did you decide? Harriet asked. Are you going to be walking home with me and my friends today after school, or do you have to ask Sarah's permission? I don't have to ask her permission, Addy said quickly. I'm going to walk with you. Good, Harriet said. She sounded satisfied. By the time the students arrived at the railroad station, a crowd had gathered. The students lined up along the streets with other people to watch the soldiers march by straight and tall in their blue uniforms trimmed with brass buttons. Addy and her class cheered and applauded, but as Addy looked around, she saw that not everyone was cheering. Some women and children were crying as they watched soldiers march off to war. Then Addie saw one soldier who looked like her brother Sam. Suddenly, she felt like crying herself. Addie turned to Harriet and said, "My brother really wanted to fight in the war." "Really?" replied Harriet. She didn't sound interested. "My uncle is serving with the 3rd Infantry. That's the 1st Colored Regiment organized by the state." "Oh," said Addie. She wished she knew much about where Sam was, as Harriet knew about her uncle. On the way back to school, the boys marched straight and tall, just as the soldiers had, and the class sang, "Rally around the flag." When school ended that day, Addie gathered her lunch pail and went to Sarah's desk. "I'm going to walk with Harriet and her friends today," Addie said firmly. "She asked me. You can come too if you want." "No, I can't," Sarah said. Her voice was shaking. Addie could see Sarah was hurt. She was starting to say something to Sarah when she heard Harriet call, "Come on, Addie." Addie turned to see Harriet surrounded by her friends. She gestured for Addie to come. "Go on," Sarah said bitterly. "You know you want to." Without looking at Sarah, Addie ran to join Harriet. Once she got caught up with Harriet and her friends, she glanced back at Sarah, who was alone. Addie felt torn, but Harriet distracted her. "How do you think you'll do in the spelling match on Friday?" Harriet asked Addie. I hope I'm going to do all right," Addie replied. "I've been studying really hard." "Can you believe Miss Dunn gave us 75 words to learn?" asked Mavis, one of Harry's friends. She was a tall girl with sandy brown hair. "Harriet is going to win," another girl said. "She doesn't even have to study." Addie looked back over her shoulder for Sarah. Sarah had disappeared. "We've been going to my house after school to study for the spelling match," Harriet said. "Maybe you can come with us sometime, Addie." "Here." Harriet handed Addie her books. One by one, the girls piled her books on top. "These are kind of heavy," Addie said. "Why do I gotta carry them all?" "Well, if you want to be with us, you'll have to be our flunky," Harriet said. "What's that?" Addie asked, struggling with the books. Harriet and her friends giggled. "Oh, Addie, I can tell that you just got off the plantation," said Harriet. She cast a sly look at Mavis and then said to Addie, "You have to be our flunky because you are the new girl. Sort of like you have to pass a test to be friends with us." "What kind of test?" Addie asked. "Oh, I can't tell you too much. That would be cheating," Harriet said. The girls all laughed again, and Addie felt too embarrassed to ask more. She felt that the girls all had a secret they weren't sharing with her. When the group reached Mrs. Ford's shop, the girl quickly took their books off Addie's pile. "I'll see you all tomorrow," Addie called as they walked away. "Bye," Harriet called, not bothering to look back at Addie. Inside the shop, Mom and Mrs. Ford were busily working. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Ford," Addie said. "I know this is a place of business, but I can talk to Mama for a minute?" "Make it quick," Mrs. Ford said, never looking up from her work. "Mama, can I go to Harriet's house to study for the spelling match?" Addie asked. "I told her about before. She's my desk partner, and she invited me." "I suppose it'd be fine," Mama answered, "but only if Sarah goes with you." Addie suddenly felt sick to her stomach. Harriet would never include her if Sarah had come along. "Where is your friend, Mrs. Ford asked. Addie looked away. "She ain't want to walk with me today." "That don't sound like Sarah," Mama said, surprised. "It's true, Mama," Addie said quickly. "Anyway, I know my way around now." As Addie climbed slowly the stairs to the garret, she tried to convince herself that what she had just told Mama was true. Sarah had not wanted to walk with her today. She had also had to figure out a way she could go to Harriet without Sarah. Addie knew a line had been drawn between Sarah and Harriet, and neither one would cross it. And that's the end of that chapter. I will see you later.